Hello and welcome back to another Everton review. We are reviewing the penultimate game of the season, the final game at Goodison Park of the year before the final season, of course, at Goodison. Everton winners in the final game of the season at home. We win 1-0 against Sheffield United. It is our fifth straight win at Goodison Park. And I believe that in our first 14 games at Goodison this year, we picked up 13 points or something like that, 15 points. We've basically matched that or actually gone better with this 5-game stretch. So basically this recent form has been some of the most blistering form we've put together in recent times, and it's very welcomed because it meant we could have very chillaxed games like these ones where we didn't really have to worry about win, loss, or draw. But, of course, you wanted to win a game against Sheffield, and it takes us to a points tally, which would have us too shy of 50 if we didn't have a point deduction. But let's get into the review, of course. So a repeating of history really happened because Doucoure scored the goal on the final Goodison fixture of the season. Did so last year, but he did have a couple of other, shots that he probably should have put away. There was one in the first half where DCL got him behind. It was a good cutback, a good little cross in, but Doucoure just belted it straight at the keeper. Maybe the Sheffield keeper did enough, but you feel as if Doucoure should have buried it. That being said, that was exactly how the the first goal panned out. The second occurrence of, DCL getting in behind and crossing it in. Great goal, by the way. And look, if Doucoure missed it, it would have been an absolute joke. But we talk about DCL getting in behind, Sheffield's defense and being an absolute pain in the ass to deal with. He's going to be my player of the match today. He was awesome. There weren't too many offside calls that he really got pinged for. Yeah, as I said before, pain in the ass to deal with in the air. And, the goal that eventuated that sequence all began because of DCL's pat down off his chest, to get it to the feet of, I believe it was Onana, who got it to Garner Gay, who got it to Dwight McNeil. It was one of the cleanest passages I've seen from this team all year. I mean, there was absolutely no flaw about it. Very clean. The pass was pretty much perfectly weighted. DCL was very composed. He waited for the keeper to go down. The cross went in. It was absolutely pinpoint precise. It had the perfect amount of height, the perfect amount of power. Usually we overshoot those, but it was credit to DCL, and I think it really summarizes how important he is for this team. Even though it wasn't a goal that he was chalked down with today, that play that got us the goal by him was invaluable. And if it wasn't for him, well, we've got plenty of holes in that sequence. So credit to him, man. He had a great game. And I mean, it really helps when you've got a striker leading the line who has a little bit of authority about him. And today against a Sheffield team who's been leaking goals all season, you needed to exploit that as much as possible. And DCL, he's that good that he was able to get a yellow card for doing nothing. I mean, I don't even know how that was a yellow card. The referees were making some pretty out-of-pocket calls today. Some of them, the ball's clearly gone out off the Sheffield play. You can see it on the replay. Obviously, the referees don't have the luxury of seeing replays after every single bit of action. But that being said, those look pretty obvious. And you could see the deviation in the trajectory of that pass or shot, whichever it was. It really should have gone our way in most cases, but didn't really matter in the end. There wasn't anything too compromising of the scoreline or anything that had a huge bearing on the game. Ashley Young had some really good moments today, especially in the first half, tracking back. There were a couple of times where the back line was off guard. There was one that really comes to mind where Branthwaite was incredibly out of position. I think he may have overrun the ball. And Ashley Young had to make up about 10 to 15 meters on the ball carrier who was, charging towards goal, and he was able to disrupt. So credit to him as well. I think he's had a really good patch of form at the back end of the season. We have been, let off a little bit with some easier fixtures, but I think these are the sort of games where players like Ashley Young should really be showing his experience. He did so today. He didn't really get beaten. There were a couple times where Sheffield cut inside on his side and split Ashley Young and Dwight McNeil. Basically had them on skates, but for the most part, Ashley Young was was a pretty solid contributor again. We just had a great deal of dominance today. I mean, the midfield was immense, especially in the second half. Amadou Onana, his sliding challenges, when they are executed and he doesn't get sat down because he mistimes the tackle or whatever, you know, it's a really good watch to see him dominate the midfield. And I think that was a common case with a lot of matchups today. Jared Branthwaite in the back line and Tarkowski were overwhelming the Sheffield attacking front line. But yeah, the midfield was pretty immense. Idrissa Gana Gueye had a really good run of form. He was good again today. He had a couple of chances, but, you know, nothing to show for there. I mean, we only gave away like a 0.07 XG in the first half. Sheffield did get into the game in the second half. They sort of started to be a little bit more responsible with the ball in midfield. They got past our line, our wall, almost protecting that back line, but the back line held up extremely well. There were a couple of half chances, though, for Sheffield. All that being said, they just don't have the class. They don't have the firepower. I mean, when they've shipped off that many goals and they don't have enough class in the front line, that's how they've ended up with a negative 70 goal difference. And, you know, that's what's got them in the position where they are right now, as one of the worst teams to ever enter the Premier League, you know, and play in the Premier League for a full 38-game season. I do think, though, that if we go back to the midfield was what set the tone for the game today. We dominated possession for the most part. There were a couple of patches, more so in the early portion of the second half where Sheffield had that territory, they had that possession. You could see that they were a little bit higher on the ledger, but we wrestled that back well. Yeah, I mean, it was credit to our midfield because they were clamping it inside our own attacking half. And it was proving to be pretty successful. We had a ton of chances. I mean, I think we only had 15 shots on the day, but 6 of those on target. So there were plenty of those going at the keeper. In the second half, probably a little bit less attacking impetus. But in the first half, I mean, it was pretty immense. The job we were able to do, the backline players pushing up, the midfielders also pushing up alongside and with. Yeah, Sheffield were pretty much trapped where we were able to look after the ball. We fed the right side a lot. Seamus Coleman had a lot of space out there. James Garner had a good game today. There was a lot of space for him to work into as well. He had a couple of chances in the second half, but in the first half, he was whipping in crosses with great success, or I wouldn't say great success, but you know, there was a little bit of venom about those crosses. You know, there was potential for havoc to be wreaked in the penalty box if it got to an Everton player. Sheffield were pretty good in cutting off those crosses most of the time, but there was still a little bit of threat about it. Every time you get a cross in, if it is in a good place, it does make the back line uneasy, no matter how they deal with it. So I think overall, a pretty well-rounded game today. I don't think there were too many passengers. It was good to see the bench, a few younger players come into the game. Warrington played his first Premier League game, which was a good sign to see. He's been on the bench for quite some time. So these are the games you want to expose him to. And I think even seeing Dobbin and Chamidi just looks like, I mean, a completely different player from when he first walked out onto a Premier League pitch at probably the middle stage of this season. He was able to put defenders in a blender. Like, he spun them around. There was one where the cross in, it was a great square up ball to, I believe, James Garner, and Chamidi carried that ball a long way and had to bypass multiple defenders to get in a good position, but also get the cross in. There wasn't anything easy about that. I mean, at the end of the day, whilst Sheffield have conceded 100 goals, it's no easy feat dealing with Premier League defenders. Like, take one look at those GoPro videos from preseason. You have like no time on the ball in midfield. So can you imagine what happens when you're outnumbered as an attacking player compared to like 4 backline players? And he also was getting in behind as well. I mean, to very much the same effect as DCL earlier in the game. I think that's just the way Sheffield's backline operates. They give you a lot of space, irrespective of whether they're playing a high or a deeper line. They didn't have anything to lose, so they probably could afford a few extra spaces in the backline as they were trying to attack and chase the game. But, you know, that, of course, could have resulted in something pretty catastrophic for Sheffield, as it has on many cases this season, So we move forward into next season and anticipate these players getting more game time. And hopefully having a much better impact on the game. Much higher bearing on the game. Chimidi's played like in 15-minute stints for much of this season. Maybe that goes up to 20-25-minute stints. It allows a little bit more breathing room if DCL goes out with a niggle or Beto isn't available. You know, there's plenty of opportunities, and Lewis Dobbin also may be a part of those long-term plans, especially if Jack Harrison's not going to be here in the long term. There's plenty to look forward to. We still have one game left, and we can cause some, well, major drama on final day, especially if Man City aren't able to win against Spurs in midweek and Arsenal are able to. They would go into the final game of the season ahead of Man City on the table. But we have the potential to absolutely throw everything off course for Arsenal in terms of winning the title and just being the party poopers, basically, because I think everyone doesn't want to see Man City win the title. I think everyone wants to see something a little bit different. Yes, there's a lot of people that hate Arsenal, but I think a lot of us also hate Man City for the 115 charges and the way they play every single season. This wasn't a great season by their standards, and here they are in pole position to win it all. So we have a lot of potential to just be a little bit mischievous, but until then, hope you enjoyed this reaction, the second last of the season. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe if you are new. But until then, have a good one. We'll see you for the final match day review of the season before we head into a long stinted off season. Until then, bye for now.